Hillary, this is really interesting stuff. I mean, I remember when in the early days of search engines and the notion of spiders that would go out and sort of find the ends of the internet. But it brings to notion the fact, well, let me ask you, what percentage of the internet is known, say, to Google?
Well, we don't actually know exactly. And in fact, we know that Google and other search engines are working on deep web crawlers themselves to try and uncover those links that are never linked to you from another public page, but do exist inside databases and parts of the web.
Yeah, so as it relates to this company, very interesting what they got and how they got it. Can you explain to me how these sort of scraping tools work?
Sure. I mean, it's actually a fairly trivial bit of technology. It's probably about 10 lines of code, and it's something even a programming student could write. What's clever about this is that the folks who wrote it looked at the URL structures and were able to figure out what the likely structure of the next press release would be. It was just a number incremented, and so they wrote a little bot to explore. And the bot does essentially what you do when you load a page in your web browser. It just goes to a new web address. It just simulates that, and it's, of course, much, much faster than doing it by hand.
So it basically, if the URL was, I don't know, like investor relations / Twitter Q2, investor relations / Twitter Q4, you might say, hey, what happens if we type in investor relations Q1 and the Q1 results come up?
Exactly that. And I believe, in fact, it was investor relations, release ID, and then some number. And they were just able to increment that number, something like less than 400 digits to get to the new press release.
And does this work something like the cracker programs that hackers will use, where they just throw known words and number combinations to sort of ping and test whether a password is going to work?
A little bit like that, in the sense that you're exploring a space, but in this case, the page was public. It had been published to the website. It just hadn't been linked to yet, and so it's not nefarious in the same way that those cracking programs are.
I want to phrase this question carefully, and I can't think of how to do it. How, on a level of stupidity, how stupid was the NASDAQ for publishing this early, or is this just a really great program, and almost any company could have been caught off guard by this?
So I think, in fact, it's not that stupid, though it is something that people should be aware of in the design of their applications, that if they use certainly sequential ID numbers or even IDs that are incrementing always, they're likely to be vulnerable to this kind of exploration of space. But a lot of companies do it.
When I was a portfolio manager at a hedge fund, I would hire companies to do stuff like this to just get a sense of sort of new product releases, or how many, maybe customer orders were flowing through a company, or how popular a certain thing was. But at least in my experience, the tools are really crude, and I couldn't really get, when I wanted to get week-to-week comparisons or month-to-month comparisons, the numbers were just all over the map. Have these tools gotten a lot better in the last few years?
They absolutely have, and that's where the hard work of building something like this comes from. The folks who build this product have to know where to look for the information, what information to look for, when to look for it, and how it compares to what they've already found. And yes, these tools are progressing rapidly.
Do you imagine there's a scramble over the NASDAQ right now where they're trying to find a new structure for their URLs so they can still test the page to see if it's right, but not let the world know that it's there?
Well, I would advise them to consult a computer scientist and ask about hashing, but yes, there probably is.